Officially a new era here in oil country, as today the Edmonton Oilers announced that Mike Babcock is their new head coach, and he'll be joined by associate coach DJ Smith. Welcome to the panel presented by Sportsnet. I'm Paige Martin, joined by two of Edmonton's finest in Cam Moon and Bob Stauffer from the Oilers Radio Network. And guys, big news today that feels like we have been awaiting an announcement like this one for quite some time. Bob, I'll start with you. Just a thought on Mike and DJ as we heard from them just a few moments ago.
Yeah, the biggest thing for me is organizational alignment on this, and that's why, 2 weeks ago on Monday on Oilers Now, I said from ownership to management to the players that Mike Babcock was their guy. And I think the biggest thing that a lot of people realized today was just, that there was a vision of how I think management wanted to see the team play, and I think that the team's top players, and Mike referenced, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl and Zach Hyman, how those guys acknowledged and accepted that they were going to be, part of the solution here because they were going to get pushed maybe differently than before. And so I think some people would say, well, why hasn't that happened before? Well, now you have a guy with gravitas, with a real pedigree, and he's going to be supported by a guy like DJ Smith, who's got a lot of coaching experience with him as well. And I just think it gives Edmonton a very different energy out of that coach's room. And I'm going to be really intrigued to see how this goes. I'm not naive to the process, Cam. I know for a lot of people, doesn't matter what we say, they've made their own opinion, at least at this point. And that'll, we've often seen sometimes when the Oilers have gone down some relatively controversial routes that people have second-guessed them. That comes with the territory because people have opinions because they care about the team and they're passionate. So I get that, but I got to tell you, I've known Mike a long time. I think he's a really good coach, and I think the Oilers have a lot of experience on that stuff. I'm going to be really intrigued to see where the organization goes carrying forward.
One thing that stood out to me a lot from what Mike was saying and what DJ chimed in with as well was how much they are ready to push these players and to make changes that allow every player on this team to thrive and therefore be this cohesive unit. And so I wonder, Cam, what did you think and what do you expect to see when Mike talks about pushing every single player in that room to be their best with honesty and with a level of respect as well?
Well, I think that's true to his personality, is he's going to be honest with the players. And whether you like to hear it or not, there's going to be that brutal honesty. And I think the best players want that. They want to be pushed. They want to be taken to another level. And if you can find a way to get there, that's the coach's job, is to push the envelope a bit and to maybe put you out of your comfort zone a little bit too. And that's something I think this coaching staff will have no issue doing. And that's true to their personality and the history of whether that be Mike or whether that be DJ. I mean, that's how they coach, and they've had success doing that. So I would expect more of it, and I would think the acceptance of the top players to this coaching staff and being excited about it. I think they're going to be perfect in that environment, and I think it has a great possibility for success.
DJ talked about how, for his job, he loves the players. That's the thing that stands out to him most about his job. Mike talked about specifically the relationship with his children. He can sit at the table and out of love, he can just be honest with things. And there's kind of a very similar relationship with this team, right, and what we maybe are about to see. How do you, Bob, maybe see these players being empowered and therefore growing when you have two of the best players in the game and they are sitting there saying, we want to be pushed even further?
I think we saw this year, Paige, in fairness, the Oilers probably now have three of the best players in the world, right? Yep. Because Evan Bouchard is a superstar player in his own right. A couple things here. I mean, I think one of the things that we're going to see is and Stan Bowman alluded to it today in the press conference, I think we're going to see more players involved. I think that everybody's got a role. I'm going to give you a little bit of I'm not even going to tease it. I'm just going to tell you. In an interview that I've already done with Mike that's going to run on Oilers Now, he talked about the fact, maybe the deployment of McDavid and Draisaitl depends on home versus road. I think there's a chance you might see Connor and Leon play more together at times, and that will enable some other guys to regulate the 5v5 minutes because, and this is, you know, I just want to state that Jay Woodcroft came in at the right time and helped, you know, get the team to a place that they hadn't been in a long time. And then conversely, Chris Knobloch came in at the right time and got the team to back-to-back Stanley Cups. But there was a guy that was on all of those staffs by the name of Glenn Gulletson that had great poise and experience and was critical of success. And both of those first-time coaches would say, you know, Gully played a factor, and so did Paul Coffey, obviously, in those 2 Stanley Cup runs. And so there was a different experience around those coaches. Well, this is an experienced coaching staff. And I think that I take Stan Bowman and Mike Babcock at their word. You know, they talked about alignment. Well, I think they're philosophically aligned on deploying more players. The Oilers got to get more out of guys like Trent Frederick. He's got to become a bigger part of this. So I think there's going to be a real opportunity for him. I look on defense and Jake Wallman. I think Jake's got to, you know, I mean, we're not sure what's going to happen with Darnell Nurse yet, but Jake's got to be a guy that plays, you know, 20 minutes a night. He's being compensated at that level. So I'm going to be really intrigued, especially with some of the support forwards carrying forward. I think you're going to see everybody having an identity and a role and feeling a part of things.
Point blank, this is a very exciting time of year. Of course, with the announcement today of the new coaching staff, and then knowing that in about a week's time, it's NHL free agency. Sam Bowman and his team have already been busy. Of course, they got ahead of things with both Jason Dickinson and Connor Murphy signing 5-year contracts. Those are guys that came over at the trade deadline, immediately made an impact, and they are guys who take a lot of pride in their roles on this team. And that really, you talk about alignment, aligns with what Mike and Stan were really talking about today. What do you like about the signings of both Connor Murphy and Jason Dickinson and how that can further help elevate this group heading into a very, very important year?
Well, both were key players and both played their role very well when coming over to the Edmonton Oilers. And then at the year-end media availabilities, both expressed great interest in returning to Edmonton. And we had an idea that management was interested in having them back. So when you have interest on both sides, I figured that it wouldn't take too long for them to find the common ground with money and term, and they did. And I think that's key for this team, for that depth up front, for that depth on the back end, and players that have already been here, players that already understand the dynamic within the room, that are comfortable with that, as opposed to, you know, somebody that you sign in the summer and Edmonton might be new to them, and there's an adjustment. There's all of those things. You don't have that with these two guys. So, and given the free agent crop this summer being maybe not as bountiful as some summers have been, it was great to see the Oilers get ahead of it and get 2 key guys returning.
Bob, real quick, I'll ask you about the importance of Connor Murphy. You mentioned the questions around Darnell Nurse and his future, but then also with someone like Jason Dickinson, who is that defensive forward, who goes out, he's such a crucial member of the penalty kill, just the importance of both of them.
Paige, the bottom line is Edmonton has to improve their penalty kill. Okay, they got the best power play in NHL history over the last 7 years. They led the league in power play again last year. Their penalty kill wasn't good enough. They got half of the top penalty killing unit in the league with Dickinson along with Murphy. Now, we didn't see what Jason Dickinson could do in the playoffs because he was so compromised due to that knee injury. What we did see is a guy that's got a lot of heart and character, right? And then in terms of Murphy, I mean, I think he exceeded the expectations. A lot of the fans when they came in, not mine. Like, I had a pretty good feel for him. He wasn't playing as much. He was playing 16 minutes a game in Chicago, but played 20 minutes a game and frankly settled Darnell Nurse a bit. I'm glad they're both back. They're experienced. And the thing is, sometimes, and Cam made a great point, sometimes players come into this organization and they think, well, these guys play like this, so I got to play like that. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not these two players. Those two guys are experienced veteran pros. They know their role. They know their job. They have a clear identity as to who they are, and it bodes well for Edmonton with them, at least certainly in the short term over the next 2 or 3 years as the Oilers are going forward on a year-by-year basis.
So there's been a lot that we've talked about here today. I want real quick a thought on the next week and a half or so. Stan Bowman and his team getting together for what is always an exciting time with, of course, the draft, and then development camp, and then free agency, and maybe what we can expect, what you maybe think we're kind of looking out for of those days.
Well, there's lots. I mean, you look for the team to add, and I'm always looking at netminders, so maybe there's a netminder in there somewhere, but the draft, even that too, always an exciting time seeing which players that the team's able to select. So, yeah, and development camp, all of those things. So it's an important summer for this team, very important. It's been important coming for today, but today on is really important to get this team towards what it needs to be when the season starts.
I do value amateur scouting, and I'm going to say something that the amateur scouts aren't probably going to like, but I wouldn't be that upset if we saw a couple more picks go to address needs right now. And so, you know, I think that maybe you could make a play for a goaltender, theoretically a younger guy that might be on the precipice of needing to clear waivers. And then when you're looking at it forward, maybe there's a forward in another organization that's maybe not would be a better fit in Edmonton. And that may require you to move a couple, like, you know, in the second, third round range, you might need to move that. So I might be inclined to that. I have no idea what the Oilers management and staff is thinking, but I do think it's going to be intriguing, and I think there's going to be a subtle addition or two made along the way.
But that's just your 2 cents.
That's my 2 cents. That is not.
If he was at the helm, we know what Bob would do.
No. I would listen to those around me.
Yeah, very smart. Very smart.
Yes.
Guys, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today. And of course, it's always nice to see your faces during the summertime.
Thanks, Paige.
Thank you guys also for joining in Oil Country. It's an exciting time to be an Edmonton Oilers fan. This has been The Panel, presented by Sportsnet.